All right, welcome to The Explainer. Today we're diving into a tool called PubPeer. And let me tell you, it is absolutely turning the quiet, kind of secretive world of scientific review on its head. We're talking about something that's totally changing how research gets checked, fixed, and, argued about.
So, just picture this for a second. What if every single scientific paper ever had a public comment section right below it? And it's there forever. A place where anyone with the right background could just jump in and post their thoughts, their critiques, questions, whatever. Well, that's not some sci-fi idea. That is literally what PubPeer is all about. And as you can imagine, it's creating some amazing opportunities, but also some massive headaches.
Okay, but to really get why a tool like PubPeer is so revolutionary, we've got to take a step back first. We need to look at the old way of doing things, the traditional system it's trying to shake up. Let's talk about classical peer review.
So, the old way, traditional peer review, it's all done in secret, right? Behind closed doors. A journal picks a couple of experts, they privately review a paper before it ever sees the light of day. And, this system, it can be a bit of a black box. It can lack transparency, and yeah, it can definitely be open to bias. But this new model, post-publication review, the one PubPeer is built on, it just flips that whole script. The review is public, it's totally transparent, and it all happens after the paper is out there for everyone to see. And that, right there, is meant to make the whole system way more accountable.
And that brings us right back to the star of the show today, PubPeer. It was built from the ground up to be that public, transparent alternative.
So what is it exactly? Well, PubPeer is this online platform for what's called post-publication peer review. The easiest way to think about it is like a huge central town square for science. It's independent, it's uncensored, and it's where scientists can just talk. They can have a totally open debate about research that's already been published, long after the journal has moved on.
And this isn't some brand new thing either. The platform has been around for a bit. It was founded way back in 2012, and then in 2013, it really started to take off. Now, what's super important here is that today it's run by a nonprofit foundation. And that's a key detail, right? It tells you their goal isn't making money. It's about improving scientific conversation.
Okay, now let's talk about probably its most powerful and definitely its most controversial feature. Anonymity. Get this, a whopping 86% of all comments on PubPeer are anonymous, and that's on purpose. It's designed to protect people, like junior scientists or whistleblowers, who might be afraid of career suicide if they publicly criticize the work of someone way more powerful.
But hold on, it's not a total free-for-all. It's not just random trolls posting whatever they want. To stop that kind of abuse, PubPeer has this really important check in place. Even if you want to post anonymously, you have to prove you're a legitimate member of the scientific community. You need a publication history or some other kind of verifiable info. PubPeer's own moderators actually check this out before a comment ever gets posted.
So when everything is clicking and working the way it's supposed to, PubPeer becomes this incredibly powerful tool for science to correct itself. It's basically a safe haven for the digital whistleblower.
And here's how that's supposed to play out in a perfect world. Step 1. Someone spots an issue. Maybe it's a doctored-looking image or a wonky statistic, and they flag it in a comment. Step 2, that comment kicks off a public conversation among other experts. Then, step 3, all that public chatter puts pressure on the journal or the university to actually investigate. And finally, step 4, the scientific record gets cleaned up, either with a simple correction, or if it's serious, a full-blown retraction of the paper.
The whole point, the really crucial thing here, is that PubPeer gives these concerns a safe, independent place to live. It's become the spot for whistleblowers to say, hey, look at this problem. And as this quote shows, it works. It has absolutely led to bad science being retracted, which helps clean up the scientific record for all of us.
But, and this is a big but, there's a twist in the story. This amazing watchdog tool, it also creates its own set of really modern, really messy problems. The real world is rarely as neat and tidy as that 4-step process we just walked through.
Think about it. What happens when someone flags a huge problem in a paper from, say, 15 years ago? The original data is probably long gone. The authors might have retired, or you can't even find them. This is exactly where the beautiful idea of open review slams right into the messy reality of the real world.
So let's look at a perfect example of this. It's a real case that was brought to the Committee on Publication Ethics, or COPE. Here's what happened. An anonymous comment popped up on PubPeer.
It called into question an image in a scientific paper, a paper that had been published more than 15 years ago.
And this just perfectly shows the impossible situation the editor was in. I mean, what do? You want to investigate, but how? Request the raw data? After 15 years, good luck. It's almost certainly gone. Contact the authors? They might be unreachable or have moved on completely. Look at the original images? Well, the ones online are so low res you can't tell anything for sure. The editor is, for all intents and purposes, completely stuck.
So what was the outcome? Well, in this case, there really wasn't one. Because the claims couldn't be proven, but they also couldn't be disproven, the case was just closed. No action taken, no correction, no retraction, not even a little note of concern. And that anonymous allegation? It just sits there, hanging in the air, forever attached to that paper.
And this problem, these unresolved questions, it's not just a one-time thing. It really points to a much bigger issue of engagement, or rather, the lack of it. For example, the data shows that only a tiny, tiny fraction of authors, we're talking just 7.5%, ever even bother to respond to comments about their work on PubPeer.
Okay, so if the authors aren't responding, what about the journals? Are they stepping in? Well, the numbers there aren't much better, to be honest. Only about 21% of papers that get flagged with issues on PubPeer ever get an official correction or retraction. Just think about that. That means for the huge majority, these public discussions, they lead to absolutely nothing.
And the problem doesn't stop with the journals. PubPeer is putting a massive strain on the research institutions, the universities themselves. See, every single one of these anonymous comments could be interpreted as a formal allegation of misconduct, and institutions often have to investigate those. This has created this avalanche of extra work for administrators, and it's pulling time, money, and people away from, actual research. The system just wasn't built to handle this kind of volume.
So where does all this leave us? Look, PubPeer has, without a doubt, thrown the doors wide open to a more transparent future for science. But it's also clear that this future is, well, it's complicated, and it's packed with a whole new set of challenges we're still figuring out.
When you boil it all down, we're left with this really clear trade-off. On one side, you have this incredible opportunity, more transparency and accountability in science than ever before. But on the other side, the challenges are just as big. You've got the potential for abuse and bias, you've got institutions that are totally swamped, and you have this really low rate of actually getting any resolution.
Ultimately, PubPeer has definitely succeeded in making science more transparent. There's no question about that. But it's also made it way more contentious. It's like the curtain's been pulled back, and what we're seeing behind it is messy. It's not always pretty. So the real question, for everyone, not just scientists, is what now? How do we adapt? How do we build trust in science when all of its flaws are right there, out in the open, for everyone to see forever?